Tony Britt Spotter Charts serves sports media exclusively with customized cheat sheets for both prep and game time. Serving over 350 clients at all major networks, 23 NFL teams, and 68 college football programs, including Division II, Division III, and NAIA schools. Variable pricing ensures that small schools receive the same VIP service as ABC, CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and the NFL Network.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome back to Voices in the Stands, all the way up here in the nosebleeds. No burners, all business this week. Let's talk about the guy who really came to have business. Monty Quinn out of Curry College, 20 carries, 7 touchdowns, the big stat of the week, 522 rushing yards, which is a NCAA record for most yards in a game by any level, 1 through 3. We got the same crew minus Crew, who is off on sick leave with the family. So I know Utica was off, but we still have Tony to lead things off. Give us what was going on in the Empire 8 this week.
Well, yeah, listen, what does a guy do when his E8 team is off on a bye week? Well, we went, it was a beautiful day in New York City. We went on a nice walk. Not that type of walk that you guys were thinking about. We only do football and good causes here. My family and I marched in the Lupus Research Alliance 22nd annual Lupus Walk for the Cure walk. So that was great. Then we got into some E8 football afterwards. Only 2 games going on as half the conference was off on a bye week. First game we'll go over real quick was Brockport. Listen, if your school, if the first word of your school started with Alfred, it was not a good weekend for you. Brockport came in, was up and got the ball first, and within, I think, less than a minute or so, scored. And before you knew it, it was 27-zip at the half. It was 27-7. Brockport exploded with offense and got 609 total yards. 388 through the air, 221 rushing. What a kind of balance, and they really opened it up. They got 23 first down. They were only 50% on third downs, but they only had to go to. It was only 4 for 8. They didn't have many third downs to go through. They really kind of went in and kind of really manhandled Alfred State, and no disrespect to them, but it is what it is. The other game that was going on was the defending E8 champs, Cortland versus Alfred University, and oh boy, this one ended up in a 65-12 drubbing. It started off a little bit kind of sluggish. It was only 7-3, I believe, at the end of the first half. So kind of like, the thing is with Cortland, and again, I feel like teams that are going to play Cortland, you got to get up on them early, because once they start warming up, you're in trouble. By halftime, this was a 42-3 game, and boy, they really were just kind of putting it on. 439 yards total by Cortland in offense. 173 in passing, 266 in rushing yards. They were not trying to put anything on film, folks. They were just running the ball as much as you gave them, throw it when they had to. 21 total first downs. They only went, again, 2 for 10 on third downs, but they didn't really need it. It was just a defensive also kind of display by Cortland, and really telling them Alfred University who is boss. I mean, next week, Brockport plays Morrisville, and actually, the real interesting game is Cortland versus St. John's Fisher, who also is 5-1 overall. I believe 3-0. Alfred is 3-0 in the league, and Cortland is 4-0. So actually, a really interesting game, has a little bit of implications as well. St. John's Fisher have been flying underneath the radar. I've been looking at them. I haven't really, but they seem to be the real deal here, and actually sitting at the top of the conference. So, we're excited for Utica Pioneers to kind of get back into it. Utica next week has to kind of do what they have to do. They're going up to Alfred, and also going to be an interesting game, because I feel like Utica had that win that they really lots of portions that you heard me say that they should have flushed or needed to flush, and Alfred just got University just got kind of got done up by the defending EA champs. So I'm sure they're at home. They're not going to want to just let Utica come in and trounce all over them. So it really is going to be one of those things where who wants it the most? Moose Hogan wants it the most, and I'm really, really hopeful that we'll come in there and do what we have to do. But only time will tell. This is football, right? This is football.
Now, Tony, it's interesting. You pointed out how Cortland, you don't really want to let them get warmed up. That also kind of seems to be Brockport's MO this year, is that they want to get up on you early and often in that first quarter to midway through the second quarter, and then kind of coast, let that defense do what it does, pin its ears back and go play. Is that
I think you're spot on. Yeah, I think you're spot on. With Cortland, it's kind of like, and again, I mean, they are who they are, right? But I feel like if you're playing against Cortland, you have a small window to kind of get on them quick, and if you don't, like, you're gonna be in trouble. And I think Brockport is a little bit similar to that as well, where you gotta and we still have to play Brockport. I mean, we still have to play St. John's Fisher. So I'm gonna be really also kind of keeping an eye on that Fisher Cortland game, because we're gonna have not to kind of look past Alfred. Because Alfred also, again, they gave us a little bit of fit last year. They're not going to just kind of lay down, but it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting if going down the line, if Utica, Fisher, and Brockport are all tied up at the end, and then a bunch of tiebreakers and all that. That's when the math folks get involved. But you got to play 1-on-1. But yeah, honestly, like, if you want to beat Cortland, you got to get on them early. And St. John's Fisher, they're up there. They could have a shot if you get up there early. But if you let those guys back in the game, they're going to do what they do. They have a quarterback who can run. They're going to try to run. You got to shut that down. And for the Pioneers, we got to play the ball that we have to play. That's really what it is. We have to kind of go in there and assert ourselves against Alfred and kind of come back and say, hey, this is the real Pioneers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, David, I know that the bullies of Division III took a drive to North Park, and then Matt's going to give us the rest of what the CCIW had going on. But go ahead, David. Tell us about the game at North Park that was played between North Central and North Park.
Yeah, you bet. Before we start on that, I just wanted to give a little note. Kind of a serious note. I was able to watch a little bit of the DePaul John Carroll game, and there was a guy from DePaul. He got wiped out by his own player on a punt return, and they brought the ambulance on. And so I just ask everyone in D3 Nation to extend some prayers, positive energy for a full recovery for that young man. So hopefully he gets back up and around pretty quickly. And on another real positive note, also just, October Breast Cancer Awareness Month, just another shout out for what Alma quarterback Carter St. John's doing with Quarterbacks versus Cancer. Simple idea. Quarterbacks run a youth training session, and they donate all the proceeds to cancer research. So they've raised over $12,000 already. If you want to learn more, go to check them out on X at QBs versus Cancer or quarterbacksversuscancer.com online. All right, getting to the game. North Central, they were on fire. Short trip downtown from Naperville. The offense, defense, special teams, everything clicked. Cardinals dominated North Park 75-0. Scored 11 touchdowns, over 500 yards in total offense. Garrett Wilson threw for 4 scores. Backup Demir Ashery came in, went 5 for 5, added 2 more scores. An extended action, he looked pretty good. He's got incredible instincts to find open field, and as he gets more snaps, he gets more comfortable, and you can see the talent and the athleticism come through very, very clearly. The defense, they continue to feast on opponents' offenses. North Park finished with just a total of 76 yards. They ran the ball 20 times for -3 yards. That is not a typo, -3 yards. 5 of their drives ended in negative yardage. 6 others, they gained 5 yards or less. So that was pretty significant. And then when the offense stalled twice, the North Central offense went 3 and out while they punted. But the North Central defense responded with 3 and outs following that up. And one was a drive for 0 yards. The other drive was for negative 17 yards. So once again, the defense, if they felt at all pressured after a North Central punt, they just seemed to find another level. So get this. It was the 3rd shutout of the season for North Central and the 47th straight CCIW conference win. And the depth is just incredible. Now we're over 100 players have seen action. You could split this team into 2 rosters, and both teams would probably compete for the conference title. The depth is incredible. It's unbelievable. They bring the 2s and the 3s in, and they barely miss a beat, if at all. But North Central's had North Park's number for a long time. You go back to 2017, and North Central has outscored North Park 488-6. That's an average of 70 to 0.8. So North Central's shut out North Park 4 straight years and 7 of the last 8. So you can go back further to 2002, and North Central's outscored North Park 1,208-207. So thanks to Hayden K and Jake DiMatteo on X for those stats. Those were awesome. And, of course, this coming Saturday, Matt, you coming to Naperville.
I am.
We'll look forward to that. It's Cardinals against Cancer Day at Benedetti Worley Stadium. Expect to see a pink in the crowd. The opponent, the Augustana College Vikings, they come in 5-1, riding a 5-game winning streak. And they haven't allowed more than 21 points since week 2. So they'll be coming in confident, but let's be honest. I mean, North Central's owned this series, 18 straight wins. The last time Augie won was back in 2005. But,
my senior year,
certainly North Central will not take this lightly. What's that?
That was my senior year. So that's the last time.
Kidding.
Yeah. So it's been a hot minute.
I'll tell you, going back to my days, we were 0-4 against Augie, and we were beat soundly each time. So I'm pretty happy with this most recent streak to kind of put those memories in the past and keep them there. I'll live in today's world.
Well, we'll see if we can't break that 47 straight game streak and shock the world. But let's start a little bit with the first game of the day. A 10:30 a.m. start, Titans visiting Milliken, because originally that game was slated for 6 o'clock, but it got bumped all the way down to 10:30 because of weather. And, it was not a slow start for the Titans. I mean, they jumped on the Big Blue 35-7 at half. I actually had it up in my booth there, and I always get a chance to talk to, the opponent coaches and people that are setting up. And, I had some of the Carroll coaches in there watching the game, and we were talking a little bit about it. But 4 of those touchdowns came from Dermot Smythe. I mean, 383 through the air, 5 touchdowns. Will Nazha, 8 for 137 and a touchdown. Jimmy Deese also had 3 for 105 and a touchdown. So I tell you what, man, the Titans offense is rolling, and they're looking really good, and it's all starting there with Dermot Smythe. But I tell you what, you have someone that can lock down Nazha, it might be a little different game there. So, and then for, the Big Blue, Silas Gomez, he accounted for all 4 touchdowns. He was about the only good thing that they had going. 1 passing, 3 rushing. He finished for 73 yards on the ground, 282 through the air, and Kevin Lewis accounted for 131 yards on 9 catches. So a nice day for him. But again, Titans continue to kind of roll on, and Wash U hosted Elmhurst. Gosh, they were a 1 o'clock start. They didn't get started until almost 4 o'clock with a rain delay, and then eventually the game was called in the second quarter. Wash U 17, Elmhurst 0. and then Carthage visited Wheaton. There in the first quarter, it was 7-7, and then the Thunder really broke the game wide open in the second quarter, putting up 20 points. Then really never let Carthage back in the game. And they really put the clamps on Bryce Frank, who's the conference leading rusher, and only kept him to 39 yards. So, I mean, Mark Forcucci, you can't ask for a better day. 20 of 23, 378 through the air, 5 touchdowns. Seth Kortenhoven, 9 receptions, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ben Juska, 5 for 99. He also caught in a pair of touchdowns. And then defensively, 12 quarterback hurries, 3 sacks, and Colin Moore had a pair of interceptions. So defensively, they had a pretty nice day against the Firebirds. But the game, Carroll visiting Augustana, and Logan Hansen had the Vikings just a slight edge and just under a 4-point favorite. And I tell you what, it was a tight one all game long. Vikings came out, scored on the first drive. Carroll answered, and it started to look very much like, who could make the first defensive stop, because both first and second drives for both teams ended in touchdowns. However, it really came. I tell you what, probably the greatest pass, the greatest catch this weekend, Ethan Vrabach, Odell Beckham in the corner of the end zone, one-handed this thing. And we had, I think her name is Victoria Patterson or Peterson, but she was able to capture that moment in the middle of that catch, hand right there on the tip of the ball. Sweet as could be. Phenomenal pass by Jimmy McCoo. And that was pretty nasty, but Vrabach had 2 catches there, but,
hey,
2
I
touchdowns.
saw the replay and I pulled a muscle while watching that replay.
It was ridiculous. Like,
it was. Great catch.
I had to hold everything that I could from cursing on the air because I was so excited. And what was kind of funny is because I was sitting next to in the booth next to me were the Carroll Pioneers coaching staff, and anytime anything happened, there were some expletives, towards it. So I wanted to regurgitate the expletives, back to the Pioneers through the plexiglass, window in between us, but I had to be professional. So, but Carroll was able to really bring the pressure in the first half. I mean, sometimes with just 4 down linemen, Augie didn't really have a good response for it. Some of our linemen were just doing some uncharacteristic things. We went into the half, Carroll leading 21-14. They got the ball back, and really from the second half was controlled by the Vikings. Carroll couldn't get quite the pressure that they were getting. And they really, again, put the clamps to the Pioneers, holding them just to kind of a late field goal in the second half. And, Reed Breckheimer, I mean, this kid is 250 pounds. He could be, a fullback. He's a tight end, great hands. He's just an overall great athlete. Run the ball. He can catch the ball. Hell of a guy to try and bring down. Not only will he run over you, but they had a really nice play that caught the Vikings off guard. They had a wildcat style where he kind of tucked in there and then popped up, and it was a pop pass. And it caught the Vikings completely off guard. Luckily, our secondary was able to get down there and get them before they went into the end zone. They did score, but it was actually a beautifully designed play and a nice little pass by Breckheimer. But Jimmy McCoo ended the day, 320, a pair of touchdowns. And we really saw what he could do with his legs more so this Saturday than what we have seen. So a lot of straight read option plays. He had a rushing touchdown. Sean Schlanzer ended the day, 7 receptions for 116. His ability to run after the catch is tremendous. He clipped off a 44-yard catch on a critical 3rd and 3 that eventually ended in the Ethan Vrabach touchdown. Vrabach 7 for 97, a pair of touchdowns. And what I love about it is the Vikings are being more aggressive against their one-on-ones. They want that one-on-one. 6'4", 6'2". There's another 6'4" receiver, so they've got the height, and they want it. So Vikings have 2 of the top 5 receivers in the conference. They've got a ton of depth across that core. So, the Vikings got a great defense, so far, rated pretty high here in the conference, just top 2 in sacks for the year. Toby Split did what he does, the conference leading tackler. He had another dozen and interception. So there's actually 4 or 5 passes that the secondary dropped that should have been interceptions. So again, Vikings move to 5-1, and we travel up to Naperville next week to take on the number 1 Cardinals. So it's going to be, hope it's a fun one. Let's put it that way. Let's hope it's a fun one.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
before it will definitely be fun.
Ahead.
No doubt about it.
First off, Matt couldn't have gone to Naperville 2 weeks ago. That's all I'm going to say. We could have all had a beer together. Is all I'm saying. We're supposed to be a group. Second, Mikey, if you don't get that damn camera fixed, because I know there are people out there that are very upset that the rest of us have a full screen and you are this little thin phone bar. I know you're a phone guy, but maybe next week we could work on getting you widescreen. Is that something we could do?
Yeah,
that doesn't look like you're interested in.
I mean, I don't know. I'm born and raised on the old vertical screen, so it's a tough habit to kick. I'm just so used to signing in like this, and I like being a little different on here.
Do we have a budget? I don't know.
Real.
Do we have a budget for this?
If your content, if the content of your information ever goes downhill, we'll talk about your camera angle. But until then, I'm worried about the things that you have to say. I know that you got to have a lot to say because the damn WIAC did exactly what the WIAC does in the middle of the WIAC conference season, and that is beat the hell out of each other. And now none of us can really pick a game to know who's going to win, who's going to lose, who's going to be at the top when the clouds and the dusts all settle. And to give you the proper intro, one half of D3's new show, D3 Spread Option. Mikey Schultz, tell us what happened in the WIAC this week.
Yeah, the WIAC was wacky once again, which is one of the big reasons why we love this league so much up here. The biggest game this week was Platteville and La Crosse for sure, number 13 at number 4, or at Platteville number 13 actually, Platteville and La Crosse here. This was a game of 2 teams that want to run the ball. And let me take you inside the locker room of a WIAC locker room, okay? Somewhere where I spent a lot of time. One thing that our coaches would always talk about, and from hearing from other coaches in the WIAC, this same message is replicated across the league. They talk about 3 things to win in this league. You got to run the ball on offense, run it efficiently and run it a lot, and you got to stop the run on defense, and you got to limit turnovers, preferably no turnovers. Those 3 things, if you can do those 3 things, game in and game out, you will win every game in this league. That's how simple it is to win here, but those 2 things are really hard to do. And looking at Platteville and La Crosse, this was a game that Platteville exploited those things. They ran the ball really well, 284 rushing yards, almost 6 yards per carry. But they also stopped the run. La Crosse was averaging 184 yards on the ground per game. They rushed for just 49, 2.3 yards per carry. Platteville ran the ball really well, really efficiently, and they stopped the run. You do those 2 things right there, you're 2/3 of the way down. They only turned the ball over 1 time that game. That's fine enough to win, and that gives you a 38-21 win in this league. Another thing that we're really starting to figure out, we talked about it last week on here, but even more so now, with games between the top 6 WIAC teams, the home team is 5-1. So we like to throw out, hey, whose conference is this to lose? Was it La Crosse's? Was it Platteville's? I don't think this is no one's conference to lose. Someone has to win the darn league. Someone has to go on the road and win the league. Home teams between the top 6 are 5-1 at home. So right now, all you have to do to pick these games right is just pick the home team. I wish I would have known this earlier and stuck to this, because it's a lot easier than trying to think about, oh, can lacrosse win a road game, whatever. Just pick the home team. One of these teams has to step it up and do it on the road. And a lot of that is due to, these teams are all so good. They're all so tightly. They know each other so well. The home field advantages at these programs are outstanding. We know about what Whitewater does at home. We had a massive crowd at Platteville. That D1 Rejects did an awesome deal showcasing that. Oshkosh, huge stadium this weekend. They probably had 5,000 people there. There was 6,000 in lacrosse last weekend. Eau Claire had nearly 10,000 for their homecoming. So big time home field advantages in this league. Someone's got to win one on the road. Platteville, if they can keep doing that on the ground, they're going to be really, really successful this year. Lacrosse still did some good things in this game. Jack Janke is going to be an all WIAC receiver. He went for 147 and 2 touchdowns. Big body receiver, big thick a receiver out there that has a matchup problem for corners. And the Platteville corners are really good, but they're a little undersized for the league. And Lacrosse had some success through the air there, despite all their failings on the ground. I'll leave the other ranked matchup to the voice of the Warhawks, Josh, in the next segment. But I will touch on UW Oshkosh versus Eau Claire. Number 18, Oshkosh. They're home. Their 100th homecoming. Packed stadium, awesome atmosphere there in Oshkosh this weekend, and this was a really good game for 4 quarters. And Oshkosh wins this game 28-21, but I come away a little bit as a homer with this is another game where Eau Claire has shown some improvement within this league. Obviously, Eau Claire went 3-0 in the non-conference for the first time in a while. Picking up a huge win against a Carroll team that we talked about earlier. But also, they've had, against Lacrosse last week, they lost 41-21. But the final 3.5 quarters of that game, the final 50 minutes of that game, they outscored them. So it's just a few minutes of disaster that plagues this Eau Claire team. If they can start to put this together, they have something going here. Oshkosh scored first to make it 7-0. Eau Claire gets a pick 6 and it's 7-7. Oshkosh gets a touchdown with 9 seconds before the halftime to go into half up 14-7. And then they come out of the half and they score late in the third and make it 21-7. But then on back-to-back drives, Eau Claire gets long drives, makes it 21-21 with just 9 minutes to play. And this is just what Eau Claire has done this year. They get right there, 21-21, midway through the fourth, and the very first play, 80-yard touchdown, Oshkosh. It's 28-21. Eau Claire didn't score the rest of the way. It's just signs of a young team. You have all that momentum going. You got to be able to capitalize on it, and then just it's really frustrating as a fan to get that close and not be able to finish it off. Eau Claire had a 16-play drive to try to win the game at the very end. They got all the way into the red zone before they got to a 4th down, and the pass fell incomplete, and turnover and Oshkosh wins. Both these teams couldn't run the ball very well. Eau Claire just 53 yards on the ground, Oshkosh just 80, but Oshkosh tore it up through the air, and they were the better team that day. They deserved to win that one. And lastly, in the WIAC was Stevens Point, River Falls. River Falls did what River Falls does, and that's just throw up video game numbers. They win 52-7. Blaha 287 through the air and 2 touchdowns, but he was also the leading rusher with 100 yards on the ground and another touchdown on the ground for 3 total. That's what he does. They limited, talk about stopping the run. Stevens Point, just 50 yards on the ground. That's 1.9 yards per carry. And then River Falls on the flip side, 307 yards on the ground. And River Falls, who turns it over a lot, they had no picks this game, and they got 3 interceptions on defense. So stop the run the ball, no turnovers. There's not a huge science to that. Within winning the WIAC, it's just really hard to do. We've completed the full circle of wacky WIAC-ness now, which makes ranking these teams really hard. So start who was in first place last week. That was UW Stout. Stout has beat Oshkosh. See if we can follow this. Oshkosh beat River Falls. River Falls beat Platteville. Platteville beat Lacrosse. Lacrosse beat Whitewater. And to complete the circle, Whitewater kicked the shit out of Stout. So try to decipher that. We've got the full circle of wackiness there. Next week, we have some big games in the conference. Number 8, Platteville at number 9, Whitewater. Number 18, Oshkosh at number 12, La Crosse. Big games. River Falls plays Eau Claire, and Stoughton Stevens Point. My last thing here before I'll sign off for my segment is Mike's 5-5. That's 5 results from this week that I want to touch on that might not get mentioned here, but they deserve it. And that's John Carroll beat DePauw 31-27. Just a huge win. They're going to win the conference now. First year in the league. Nick Semptonfelter was really efficient on offense, one of the league's best quarterbacks. And then Johns Hopkins defeats Ursinus. Ursinus is a team that plays Johns Hopkins really well every year. So to come out and just lay it on them was really impressive because this Johns Hopkins team struggled the week prior with Carnegie Mellon. So I think I look now at that Carnegie Mellon game as more of a Johns Hopkins is kind of asleep at the wheel. And this is the team that the Blue Jay team that we've come to know. So they lay it on Ursinus. How about Misericordia takes down Stevenson 29-28? Program-defining win for a team that's really on the rise this year and a team that's going to start getting some playoff recognition possibly soon. I think they can win that league and get in. That would be really fun. And then Concordia, Wisconsin takes down Aurora. Aurora has been the NAACC. I don't know how we're saying that one. Some people like to say NAC. I don't really like saying NAC when there's 2 A's, 2 C's, but NAACC conference there. Concordia, Wisconsin takes down Aurora 54-45. Tons of points like you'd expect. And Aurora's day in the sun as a bit of a national, figure, a top 25 team, a conference champion year in and year out. That might be behind them now. Then Whitworth takes down Linfield. Whitworth is in the driver's seat now, the NWC. Linfield has had just a struggle of a year so far. They don't look like themselves. That was a 10-point win for Whitworth. And then lastly, looking ahead to 5 games next week, I talked about the big WIAC showdowns. Outside of that, we have Carnegie Mellon and Muhlenberg. That's a huge one with big Centennial hierarchy position on the line there. And Carnegie Mellon probably can't afford another loss to get into the playoffs. They already have 2 losses, one of the best 2-win teams in the country. They can't afford another one. Muhlenberg, on the flip side, they need to win to get in as well. So that's just a huge game. And then Hope and Adrian. Adrian just cracked the top 25 this week, so that's really awesome for them. And they get their first true test. I'm not going to really consider that Valpo game much. We don't really know a lot about Valpo as a D1. As a D3 team, I guess, I kind of like to stick to D3 opponents, teams that we know. So this is the first big test for Adrian with Hope. That's a huge game. Ohio Northern and Mount Union. Ohio Northern is undefeated in the OAC, and if they can do what they've done to other opponents defensively, just totally shutting teams out, really good against the run, getting turnovers on defense. If they can keep that going against Mount Union, they could make this a game for 3.5 quarters. They're really talented. I'm not sure they could beat Mount Union, but they could stick in this game for a while. And then Carleton and St. John's. Jack Curtis, the quarterback of Carleton, is just on an absolute tear this year. And they have just 1 loss on the season, which was at Whitewater in the first game of the year. But since then, they've just been laying it on teams. And this is probably the best test that St. John's will get that isn't named Bethel. So we're gonna learn a lot about both these teams. This again would be a game kind of like Ohio Northern and Mount Union, where I wouldn't be surprised if this is a solid game for 3 quarters. Carleton can score. And lastly, Central and Wartburg. That's a big one. Winner of this is going to be in the driver's seat to win the ARC. Central has a lot to prove. They've been ranked for a long time, and they're slowly creeping their way up the top 25. And this is a prove-it game for them. And this is going to be a classic ARC matchup where it's going to be a race to 10, literally. The first team to 10 will win this game. So I will predict right now that Wartburg will win 13-10.
Matt, to answer your question before Mikey started, I don't want anybody to get the assumption that we may be accepting inappropriate funds or doing anything like that. We're a very small budget here. It's whatever money we as the people up here in the nosebleeds that we're not spending on party favors for the nosebleed section. What we have left over, we throw into some camera and some lighting, and in the occasion that, like I'm doing right now, I have Serenity out there cranking the generator to make sure we keep the power going. Now, Josh, this is the first time I think you and I get to go next to each other. I have to lead in before we go with the Warhawks. I have to ask you, what's going on with the WIAC network? And I saw some news. I figure we'd open it up, give you or Mikey, or maybe I leave that for Mikey if you want to pass that to Mikey for final thoughts. I saw some things. Maybe there's a paywall coming. I'm just very interested on your take. Hold on, John. Hold on. We gotta rewind all that. I don't think anybody caught any of that because I was thinking that I thought I was just going. Maybe this was it. I was going deaf. I was going to join David and the rest of the old folk at the senior home. Rewind.
Hopefully
give me that back.
That out. Yeah, hopefully we can edit that out. We'll do that in post. Yeah, there was talk at the beginning of the season where, the conference was looking at going to a paywall and a paid subscription for the regular season, right? And it's, guaranteed money for these schools. And that's what the chancellors and the presidents and the athletic directors and everybody was trying to okay, you get this guaranteed money. It takes some weight off of you. And, people have this giant misconception that these state schools, and I think that's where we get a lot of the hate from because Division III is all private schools, right? And, you can get donations and you can get alumni that can fund a lot of the stuff. And, you guys in the WIAC get your, state athletic departments funded. And it's that is the budget of that is not what people think it is. So I think that's a pretty big common misconception. So they're looking at this guaranteed money coming in instead of having to self-fund it and, do subscriptions and do all that. I don't think it's a good idea. There was a giant conversation this week when the talk was about doing postseason stuff that's not covered by ESPN Plus and all the other stuff. And that's, football's not in that. It's just for all the other ancillary sports. But I did a couple of baseball games for the regionals and the conference tournament last year. I did a couple of softball games for Whitewater. And I know viewership of that is very huge. And trying to imagine that people are going to pay for that is probably a little bit of a stretch, right? And you guys know as well as I do, this is about growing, trying to make Division III accessible to everybody. And the parents that, we go through programs where people are in Arizona, they're in Washington, they're in Florida, they're in Texas, and they come to Wisconsin to these state schools. And you think their parents and their grandparents can come up to all this? Absolutely not. So they rely on this WIAC network to keep them, in the know. And now you're trying to ding them for a paywall. That just doesn't make sense to me. And I just don't understand it, I guess, that you want to further hamper people for a conference where nobody's getting anything, right? Yeah. It's all the stuff is being paid for by athletes. They're paying tuition, they're going to classes, they're taking the dings, they're having medical stuff and now you want to ding the fans? That just doesn't make sense to me.
Now, getting away from that conversation, let's talk about this past Friday. Little bit worrisome of a first half. Definitely got all put together in the second half. Talk to me. What was it? I know we had talked before the game and where your mindset was. Where were you at halftime and where were you at the end of the game?
3-0 at half. I mean, it was confident only because Stout hadn't done anything, right? So you're okay, we keep this up, but at the same time, you look at the lacrosse game and you're starting to get those tingly feelings okay, we were in a pretty good spot and it was 17-0 and they made all the adjustments and we didn't, and we played the clock. So feelings start to creep in where, okay, now a field goal and you're tied or a touchdown and you're losing. What's going to happen? This is an explosive offense. This quarterback can do a lot of things. He can pass, he can run. And then it comes out and our defense is the same hard-hitting, fly-around defense that we've had. and Stout still couldn't do anything. At the end of the day, 8 sacks, which I thought was really impressive because we've shown a tendency to let our defensive ends and linebackers get kind of inside and allow the quarterback to get outside. And this would be one of the guys that you don't want to do that to because he is their team's leading rusher, right? And he was still their leading rusher, but they didn't really attempt to run the ball. But when you get down 17-2, you're kind of in a passing situation. They threw 45 times. I thought our coverage downfield was really good. We also brought pressure from all kinds of different places. We don't do, as we've seen previously, we don't do a lot of corner blitzes. We don't do a lot of safety blitzes. We'll bring a linebacker, but a kid in Janesville, we've covered him at the high school level for the stations that I do, and now he's playing for Whitewater. He got a sack off the edge. They brought him, and he got home, and I thought that was really good. So we mixed things up against him. But like 1 rushing yard total net after all those sacks, that's pretty impressive. Mowing through, and he's a good athlete, but you could tell he was uncomfortable, right? We were getting home to him. We were making him throw before he wanted to. We were forcing him into bad situations. He threw 3 interceptions. He came in with 6. I thought that number was a little high, and we might be able to do that if we got to him. But coming in, when we only got 1 sack against Stevens Point, the worry is, can you get to him? How elusive is he going to be? Way more than the Stevens Point quarterback. No disrespect to him, but Moen has shown a propensity to go and just take off. We didn't let him do that, and I was a little surprised he wound up with as few yards on the ground as he had. So, but again, you're looking at getting better, and special teams once again rearing its ugly head, and it got really interesting. We scored right away in the 3rd quarter, and it's you're feeling pretty good. It's 10-0, and then all of a sudden, penalties and on a punt return that went 85 yards, block in the back, you're back at your 7 or 8, and then you run a couple and you wind up with a net loss and you're punting from your own end zone, heels on the back line, and the ball goes right through the punter's hands and for a safety. And you're like, all right, now we got to give the ball back to him on a short field. Again, those emotions, those waves of lacrosse feelings are starting to come in. Our defense stepped up. They got into the red zone. We got a pick. Like, there was always an answer from Whitewater against Stout, and I thought it was a great, great second half statement in a blowout win, not allowing them in the end zone or to get the ball through the uprights.
Now, what is your future outlook? Where does now obviously the lacrosse loss sits there, and it's going to sit on the brain probably the rest of this year until, regardless of what the outcome is. Until you guys play lacrosse again, I think that's a game that's just going to sit there because of how the first half versus the second half. But now we're 2 games removed from that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and especially because you don't like chasing people in the conference, right? You want to be in the driver's seat. You don't want to have to depend on anybody else. Platteville did us a favor, right? And now, like Mikey said, he ran through the whole full circle thing. You've got Platteville, River Falls, Whitewater, Lacrosse, Oshkosh, Stout, all at 2-1. That's pretty insane. So you've got a few weeks to see some movement out of that. But right now, probably the biggest game of the year outside outside Lacrosse is next week. It's Platteville. It's homecoming. I'm kind of, I'm not worried about our defense against their offense. Our defense has been lights out. Our offense has been a little inconsistent. We're really deep at running back. Klinkner, the quarterback, was 500. I think he was 8 for 16. Threw a touchdown, threw a pick. So there's a little inconsistency there. Running the ball, we're deep. We can throw 4 different running backs with different skill sets. We can split guys out. Have them catch the ball out of the backfield as well. But I'm a little concerned about Platteville's ability to score points on our defense, and I think this is probably going to be the biggest test so far. I thought Lacrosse's offense was not what won the game for them, right? It was the special teams, and it was the momentum, and I think it was 1 drive by that offense that was really effective. So I'm kind of curious to see how good Platteville's offense is and how we can do against that defense, which is normally pretty good, but, they're giving up points. So hopefully we can score on them, but this is huge. I mean, it's homecoming week. It's the George Chris Bowl. I can't remember what number. I want to say it might even be 30. And it's also Hall of Fame Day. So Whitewater Athletic Department's inducting all of its Hall of Fame members. So there's a lot going on within the game and also outside the game. Hopefully it's a big draw. We only drew 5,600 on Friday night, last Wisconsin high school football regular season night. So that was a little bit disappointing. Wasn't a huge home field advantage like we've had in the past. So hopefully against Platteville for the George Crisp Bowl, this is going to be huge.
9 hours and 38 minutes back towards the East Coast from you guys in Whitewater. Let's talk about a little bit of the East Coast schools. Mikey touched on one of them that I got to catch the final drive. Misericordia goes down the field. Interesting. They ran from about the 12, 14 yard line in. They ran QB draw. Misericordia calls a timeout. Stevenson calls a timeout. Misericordia out. They run out into the same formation, fake the QB draw, run a slant for the touchdown that put them down by 1, and then come out in the same formation, run a fake slant. I guess you would call it maybe a dolphin route, banana, whatever reference you want to use it. Basically, the guy took 2 steps in, hard sold like he was running the slant, ran the out, wide open for the win. Big win for Misericordia. It's their first win against Stevenson. Basically puts them in the driver's seat of the MAC. The other conferences that I've been, and once again, I want to say thank you to Dylan Kramer for putting together the recap. The NJAC seems to be like it's an inevitable battle that we're waiting for Christopher Newport and Salisbury to play each other. The team that wins that game is probably winning the NJAC and getting the bid. The Centennial Conference, Mikey touched on that as well. Hopkins did what it was supposed to do. Carnegie Mellon did what it was supposed to do against Gettysburg. Muhlenberg got it done against McDaniel. And Franklin or Marshall, who snuck one out against Muhlenberg a week ago. Muhlenberg fans might say, kick the field goal, go to overtime. Coaches said, let's go for 2. Doesn't work. They kick a last-second field goal, which gets them as I'm looking here, 3-point win over Dickinson. Franklin and Marshall's a team out of the Centennial that people might want to keep an eye on. The ODAC, Randolph-Macon did what it was supposed to do, 47-0. Bridgewater got on the right track against Gallaudet. Hampton-Sydney got back on the winning side, and Shenandoah beats Roanoke in a game that Roanoke had a couple opportunities there, and Shenandoah just kind of kept them at arm's reach and then put the final nail in the coffin with about a minute and a half left to go. In my neck of the woods in the PAC, W&J did what it does, which is pretty much outright put themselves in the driver's seat of this PAC conference. After that 0-2 start, they really have not looked back. The offense has been dominant, and as you said about the Warhawks defense, W&J's defense has been very stout. Little WIAC shout out there. Bethany got beat by Hiram. Westminster held on to its kind of middle of that second, third place area with a win over Teal. And here's the big one. Geneva moves to 4-1 in the PAC. It's the best start that they've had since joining the PAC. Matt talked about 2005 being the last time that North Central beat or lost to Augustana. The last time that the Geneva Golden Tornadoes were still just an affiliate member in the PAC, 2011. I was a young bison learning the ropes of the PAC in Bethany. They got the win over Waynesburg, 62-20. And then Allegheny was no match for Grove City, whose offense finally has started to come to life a little bit with a 42-6 win. I still think really the PAC is probably a one team in the automatic qualifier. The ODAC's interesting. I think it's got to be Randolph-Macon's conference to lose again this year. The NJAC, we already talked about it. That's Christopher Newport and Salisbury are pretty much on a collision course for each other. And then it's Hopkins conference to lose. Centennial. I think you could possibly see 3 teams get into out of now that I'm thinking about it. following up on last week, Ursinus could have 2 losses, which would be Muhlenberg or Johns Hopkins and possibly Carnegie. Muhlenberg, if they can go in and beat Carnegie Mellon, then you're talking about a 1-2 loss Muhlenberg team under that Johns Hopkins team. So there's a lot of, with the MPI and the way scheduling goes, the Centennial could see 3 teams. And then again, before we forget, Monty Quinn. I don't know what they're feeding these Curry College coaches. I'll have to get a hold of Coach Todd Parsons and find out what's in the water up there, because 20 carries, 522 yards, setting the NCAA record across all divisions for rushing yards in a game, and the 7 touchdowns. I mean, those for David, wherever he is at the moment, those are Luke Lana numbers. So, but great week of football. I think, once again, the WIAC, the WIAC, however, whatever you call it, what we learned is that none of us know anything, because the WIAC's going to be wacky. And especially 4 games into the WIAC conference schedule, it's really going to be wacky, as Logan Hansen, and if you haven't seen it, the nice graphic of all the teams that Mikey and Josh covered on the you beat me, I beat you. No, that's not how. Here's the points. And now, Josh, I do have to ask, if it does come down to let's say there's a 3-way tie at the top, is it a Gardner system? Does it go to points? How do they factor out how somebody falls 1, 2, and 3 if it gets tied at the top?
Well, I mean, obviously the NPI takes care of that stuff as far as getting in, but they all share the conference title. Like, we had that, I think, in our first or second year, we tied. I don't even remember with who. All these seasons just blend together, but you get a share of the title if you tie, no matter if you lost to the team that you're with and somebody else beat them. It doesn't head to head. You still got a share, right? And then the way that the Isthmus Bowl is calculated is it is the last time. Oh God, I'll have to look this up again, because we had it last year because there was a giant tie and Whitewater was out of it because Stout was the team that had not been in the playoffs the longest, I think, or something like that. And so they got the Isthmus Bowl berth. I'm probably screwing that up, but it's something to the effect of the team that has not had a postseason appearance the longest gets the berth. And that's why Stout played Wheaton in the Isthmus Bowl. So conference championship doesn't matter. If you're tied, you get a share. You call yourself a conference champion. But then the Isthmus Bowl comes down to, previous success in the postseason and berth and stuff like that.
And it's interesting that you bring up the Isthmus, because that's all I have for our segment. I think you've covered the Warhawks enough, but we do have some Isthmus Bowl coverage coming in our final thoughts. Again, half of the D3 spread option team will be part of the final thoughts, and our very own Matt. Matt, you got the final thoughts, and I believe you got the Isthmus Bowl, right?
Yeah, I have got a little bit here about the Isthmus Bowl, but I will give it to Mikey to start, and then I will be in tow on the Isthmus Bowl.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to wrap up with. I feel like I covered a lot during my segment, but I would like to touch on more teams here that are kind of sleeper picks. Teams that might get into the playoffs. A few of them should get into the playoffs. And teams that, if you're filling out your bracket, you might go, oh, that's a win. That's a win. I'm just going to give some teams you might say, hey, not so fast. These teams are a lot better than maybe what their name or their conference would lead on. Start with Monmouth, who's on hair this year. Really, really strong team, and their one cross conference game, they got a chance to play Wartburg, and like they usually do against Wartburg, they played them really, really tough. This team is just on a tear. They throw the ball really well. Monmouth's one of those teams. Carlo talked about W&J. This is a team that's not in the top 25, hasn't been in the top 25 since week 1, but they're just slowly under the radar, stacking wins after a horrible start to this. That's another team where, hey, you get your bracket, WJ's on the road, you're probably just penciling in whatever home team that is. Not so fast. They're really, really good. Baldwin Wallace, going to finish second, possibly in the OAC. Another team that you might not want to see rolling up to your stadium. Really talented squad. Hanover. I think they're going to win the league. And Hanover's a team that beat Alma. And Alma is another one of those sleeper teams. If they can find a way to get in, Alma and Hanover, two teams that don't just pencil in their opponent to move on. Really quality, under-the-radar programs. Another one would be Franklin Marshall. They fit that bill for sure. Carlo talked about them. And this week, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Millsaps. Millsaps took down Maryville in a big-time upset. Not a top 25 upset, but a big upset within the conference. And Millsaps has a chance to do it again this week when they play Barry. If they can do that 2 weeks in a row, that would be something that we haven't seen for a while in that league. And they're constantly one of those programs that has the ability to knock off the top dogs. But it doesn't always happen, but they're always a really, really tough out, similar to Dickinson, who had a close game with Franklin Marshall this year. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on Millsaps Berry this week. I'll turn the rest of it over to Isthmus Bowl talk, which I'm pretty interested to hear what you got to say about this, because I think tiebreakers are going to play a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to look at it specifically from the CCIW perspective because, we've got a lot going on. I mean, North Central's 5-0 in the conference. Augustana, WashU, Wheaton, all 4-1. Then you have Illinois Wesleyan there at 3-2, and that's really where all the magic is going to happen because, I want to hypothetically play out the remainder of the season in the CCIW in way for the qualifier because next week WashU goes to Wheaton. You have to assume, right? We're going to make some assumptions here along the way that they're going to lose to Wheaton, falling to 4-2 in the conference. And we're going to probably strongly assume Augustana is going to do the same thing to North Central. And then Illinois Wesleyan, though, should beat North Park. So now you have a 6-0 North Central. They're heading their way to the automatic qualifier. Wheaton's now 5-1. Now we have Augie, WashU, and the Titans are all at 4-2. In 2 weeks, Wesleyan visits Augustana. Major Isthmus Bowl implications. That's, 1 of 2 qualifiers, in my opinions, for the Vikings. So the winner of that game moves to 5-2 because WashU plays Milliken. They should also move to 5-2. It should be an easy win. And really, when we think about this Titan Viking game, in my opinion, this is going to be a shootout. This has the makings of a 45-42 type game. And if there's probably a team that scares me the most, it's the Titans and how they're playing offensively. They always seem to play the Vikings really, really tough. It's always a chippy game. It's always a game that comes with, just kind of deep-rooted traditions and wanting to beat up on each other. Now, I still think the Vikings are the 45 in that instance. I think they do come out on top. Just a lot more firepower offensively than the Titans can. So they'll stop Will Nazha, and that'll be it. So now, hypothetically, you now have a 5-2 Augustana going to Carthage. Carthage is always kind of a unique one because you got to play, their defense. They just line up and play you just like an offense would. So, so now they go to Carthage. WashU hosts North Park, both winnable games. So we're now potentially looking at November 15th, the last game in the CCIW conference. WashU visits Augustana, both 6-2, tied for third in the CCIW. Assuming Wheaton gets that second playoff spot, this is now the Isthmus Bowl play-in game. So circle that on your calendars. The one question I was talking to Mike Shaw, we were texting back and forth today, and I owe him a follow-up on is, could there potentially be a way for a 3-way tie to happen in the CCIW? And I think there is. So I haven't played that one out yet. So I owe Mr. Shaw a follow-up. But what are you thinking on the Isthmus Bowl, Mike?
Yeah, that sounds like that's a really intriguing and very possible situation. Of those 3 teams, I think Augie's the best of those 3 teams overall. And isn't there something in the Isthmus Bowl where it would be the team that wasn't there, that hasn't been there, the most recent? So if Augie and Wash U are tied, and or it goes to head to head first. You're saying it goes to head first, no matter record.
I was actually on the Isthmus Bowl site. I'm not entirely sure. I was trying to find it real quick around how they break it down. And real quickly, I do not, because it has just the scenarios, but it doesn't have the qualifiers. That next layer down. I can't find it real quick, so I'm not entirely sure, but how they would necessarily look at that. But at the end of the day, Vikings need to essentially just win outside of North Central. They need to go in at 8-2 and they're in. The only thing that really upsets the apple cart is, if they lose to the Titans and then beat, Wash U, because Wash U already beat the Titans. So that's, I think, where some of the scenario could come into. But then I think you need Wash U to, or the Titans to do something else. So maybe Carthage plays spoiler somewhere, along the way as well. So that's the likely scenario. But again, it's an interesting couple of weeks, because this is definitely in the back half. This is the hardest part of the season for the Vikings. But should feel a little bit easier after they go up and play North Central. That's going to be the hardest one for them here. So outside of that, they've got to kind of run the table. So likely scenario, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure that will be. And from the WIAC side of the Isthmus Bowl, I have no idea. It could be any of the 6 teams. I'm not even going to try to guess. I'm not even going to look at tiebreakers, because I don't think it's even going to look. You can't even predict what's going to happen. So I'm not even going to try. But you will play one of 6 teams that are all currently ranked right now. So that's all I'm going to say.
Josh, you want to jump in on this?
There we go. I did do some deeper looking, and because there was, I think, a 3-way tie last year, the head-to-head doesn't matter. So you jump to the next one, and if it's still tied, it says the team with the longer wait of its last NCAA playoff appearance gets the berth. And then a third tiebreaker, if that's somehow tied, a random selection by the commissioner, which then you're talking Friday Night Lights diner coin flip stuff, and it's like that's all off the tide. I want to see that, but I don't want to see that. So that's how that works. But yeah, so I dove deeper into that, and that's what I came up with, and that sounds right from what I was talking about earlier.
Does anybody else have anything they would like to add? Matt, are you coming back in on this?
I don't know who I want to play. I mean, frankly, I think Wheaton proved they probably match up the best in terms of, the second team from the CCIW with the WIAC, the WIAC teams. Need to correct myself there. The chancellor from Platteville said the WIAC, so I'm just going to go with that. Now, I just don't know who I want to play. Like, when I think about who matches up, well with Augustana, I don't want to play lacrosse. I don't want to play Whitewater. I don't want to play Platteville again. I mean, Stout or Oshkosh, possibly, but again, you've got 6 teams at 2-1 right now. So
We don't have this problem over here in the PAC. W&J is going to win, and Grove City or Westminster is going to play the second or third best team in the out of the OAC in the new bowl series that's going on out here. And looking at the other teams represented here, North Central's probably going to be in that really nice 40-team tournament. Utica seems like they're on a path to carve their way into that 40-team tournament. The team purple seems like they're, well, actually, I don't want to talk about either one of you two at the bottom from Wisconsin, because I could say this week that they're on the path for this, and the road has been broken, it's been chipped up, we're paving it again. I appreciate it, everybody. Do you else have anything before I sign off?
Shout to Tony Britt spotter charts. We use them for whitewater, and I know Matt uses them too. And I went to the Badger game, and they had done a chart for somebody else on their giant client list. And because of NIL and the transfer portal, I have no idea who those on the Badgers anymore. So I printed one out, and I was the dork who took it with me to the game, but it was very valuable.
Let me just add in, Josh, I was able to listen to your broadcast of the Whitewater game on Friday night. Lights out, phenomenal, fantastic, incredible level of professionalism. I salute you, sir. You did a great job.
Appreciate that, Dave. Appreciate it very much.
And since we're in the game of shouting out, don't forget Wednesdays, D3 spread option with Mikey and crew. Hopefully he's back healthy. And so that we can wrap this up, because we've been, the last 2 weeks, we've been going a little long, boys. We've been going a little long, so I think it's a good spot to end it. Just remember, it's all business and no burners here in the Nosebleeds. So we'll catch you next week, Chuckleheads.